Hello. I'm Sally, your host. Welcome back to my Masters Chess channel, the third board. In this video, I will show you the conclusion of the game played between the fourth world champion, Alexander Alekhine, and the Hungarian master, Geza Marockzy, in 1931, Bled, Slovenia. If you have not watched part 1, I recommend you watch it first. Just click the link above. If your device does not show the link, you can access part 1, through links my master made available in this video description, and in the comments section. And now without more delay, let's continue the game. As we watched in part 1, in this position, Alexander Alekhine had white and played pawn to f4. How should black respond to the threat of pawn to f5? In our last video, I showed you 3 candidate moves for black. They were rook from a to c8, knight from b to d5, and bishop to e8. As I said before, one of these moves will keep equality, but the other 2 will bring advantage for white. If you wish to study this position and try to find the best move, pause the video now. If black tried to counterattack and played a natural move like rook from a to c8, one possible continuation would be pawn to f5, queen to b4, defending the e7 bishop. Taking the f5 pawn would be worse. The game could continue like this. Knight takes on d7, threatening the e7 bishop. Rook takes on d7, defending it. Bishop takes on f5. Rook from c to d8. Bishop takes rook. And white would win the exchange and have a superior position. Let's return to the beginning of this variation. After queen to b4, the game could continue like this. Pawn to a5. White is trying to expel the b6 knight in order to relocate his light square bishop to c4. Knight to a4. Taking the a5 pawn would be much worse. In this case, we could have knight takes on d7, rook takes knight, f takes on e6, rook takes on d4. If pawn takes on e6, then queen takes e6 check wins. Bishop takes on f6. Bishop takes bishop. E takes on f7 check. King takes on f7. Rook from c to e1. And white's position would be much superior. Let's return to the variation. After pawn to a5, black could also respond with knight from b to d5. After that, the following continuation suggested by Stockfish could happen. Knight takes on d7. Knight takes on d7. F takes on e6. Bishop takes on h4. E takes on d7. Queen takes on d4 check. King to h1. Knight takes knight. Rook takes knight. And white would be much better. Let's return to the variation. After knight to a4, the game could continue this way. Bishop to c4. Rook takes bishop. Knight takes rook. Rook to e8. Knight to a2. Queen to b3. Queen to c2. Queen takes queen. Rook takes queen. And white would be much better. Now let's return to the original position. Here, if black tried knight from b to d5, one possible continuation would be pawn to f5. Queen to b6. Reinforcing e6 and threatening the d4 pawn. Bishop to c4. Ignoring the threat on d4. If black took the d4 pawn, white would reply with bishop to f2 and would be better. Black continues with rook from a to c8. a5. Queen takes on d4. Bishop to f2. Knight takes on c3. Rook takes knight. Queen to e4. Knight takes on d7. Queen takes queen. And knight takes on f6 check. White would be better according to Stockfish. My dear viewer, I enjoy very much showing you these variations, but sometimes people get sleepy. Are you still with me? Well, let's return to the original position. In 1931, Geza Marockzy with black played bishop to e8. The best move, also according to Stockfish. There is one other move suggested by the wise fish, that also keeps equality. It is queen to b4, the second best move according to the engine. I wanted to show the ramifications of that move too, but my master ordered me to skip them. Now let's continue the game. By playing bishop to e8, black protects his bishop, reinforces f7, and puts pressure on the d4 pawn. White continues with knight to g4. Increasing pressure on the f6 knight, and offering the queen's pawn. In his book My Best Games of Chess, Alekhine explains that trying to defend the pawn would jeopardize white's attack. However, according to Stockfish, pawn to f5 was a better move. Black responds with Rook takes on d4. Accepting the sacrifice. But knight from b to d5 was better for black according to the engine. One possible continuation is knight to e5, queen to b6, f5, e takes on f5, rook takes on f5, queen takes on d4 check, bishop to f2, queen to b4, bishop to c4, rook from a to c8. And black would be slightly better according to Master Fish. Let's return to the game. After rook takes on d4, white continues with bishop takes on f6, bishop takes bishop, knight takes bishop check, g takes knight, knight to e4. As you can see, white is now threatening to play knight takes on f6 check. According to Stockfish, the best response here is knight to d5, but knight to d7 is good too. However, Marockzy chooses another move. He plays rook from a to d8. Marockzy decides to counterattack by activating his other rook. He also threatens to capture the white bishop on d3. With two rooks in the same file, his position seems to be very solid. Perhaps he thought the knight check would be inconsequential. However, this, according to Master Fish, was a mistake. And regarding the bishop on d3, Alekhine will defend it indirectly by making continuous threats. White continues with knight takes on f6 check, king to f8, knight to h7 check. Pawn to f5 was better according to the wise fish. However, this is an interesting move that forces the black king to the center, since king to g8 or g7 would be worse for black. For example, king to g8, queen to g4 check, king to h8, queen to h4, queen to e5, queen takes on h6, queen to g7, queen to h4, king to g8, knight to f6 check, king to f8, bishop to e4. Preparing to bring the c1 rook to the king side. It also blocks the black rook. Bishop to c6. Bishop takes on c6. Pawn takes bishop. Rook to c3. And white would be much better. Let's return to the game. After knight to h7 check, we have king to e7, pawn to f5, rook from a to d6. This is better than taking the white bishop on d3. Taking that bishop would be a mistake. The game could have continued this way. Pawn to f6 check. King to d6. Queen takes rook check. Knight to d5. Queen to g3 check. e5. If king to d7, then knight to f8, mate. Queen to g8. To check on f8. Queen to d2. To counterattack on e3. Queen to f8 check. King to e6. Rook from c to d1. Queen to e3 check. King to h1. e4. And, white would be much better according to Stockfish. Let's return to the game. Observe carefully this position. Alekhine is about to make a very interesting move. If you want to try to find it, pause the video now. White plays pawn to b4. Alekhine offers this pawn to remove the black queen from her current position. White wishes to move his queen to h5, or e5. Marockzy response is queen takes on b4. If black played queen to d5, refusing the pawn, white would reply with rook to c5, trapping the queen. If black took the pawn with the rook, one possible continuation would be queen to h5, e5, f6 check, king to d8, queen takes on h6, rook takes on d3, queen to f8, rook to d7, rook to c5, queen takes on a4, rook takes on e5. And in his book, Alekhine considers this position winning for white. However, Stockfish 14 considers that black still has enough resources, and evaluates the position as equal. This is not the first time they disagree in this channel, and probably it will not be the last. Which evaluation is the correct one? Personally, I am biased in favor of Master Fish, but I will leave it to you, my dear viewer, to decide. Let's return to the game. After queen takes on b4, we have queen to e5, threatening queen to b6 check, knight to d7, defending it and threatening the queen. The white bishop is still on d3, queen to h8. And here we arrived at a very interesting position of the game. It's black's turn now, and as you can see, the white bishop is defenseless on d3. This bishop, immobile, makes me remember that bird, the raven, in that famous poem of Edgar Allan Poe. I will read its last stanza. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demons that is dreaming. And the lamplight over him, streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow, that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted, nevermore. Well, if you were Geza Marockzy, would you take the white bishop now? In the actual game Marockzy played, rook takes bishop. Alekhine replied with pawn to f6 check. The first move in a forced sequence of 3 moves that lead to checkmate. Can you see the mate? If black played knight takes pawn, then queen takes knight check, king to d7, and knight to f8 mate. If black played king to d8, then queen takes bishop check, king takes queen, and rook to c8, mate. And that's why, my dear viewer, that in this position, Geza Marockzy resigned. Did you like this game? I hope you enjoyed this video. Please support our channel by liking and subscribing. It will help us a lot. My master and I wish you good luck in your chess. See you next time. Goodbye.